time is now.
That's the question there, but we'll talk about that, of course. It appears there's a new training ground site confirmed. Is it Seton Burn announced, expected early in 2026. So I guess we'll dive into that as well. And Wissa AFCOM dilemma. Yesterday, the last we were talking about Elliot Anderson returning to Newcastle, and it appears that some accounts already, some ITKs on social media already confirming that his head has been turned, but maybe not the outcome that we want, because it seems Man United might be in for Anderson as well. Which one will he choose? Will he do the Alan Shearer, or will he be another Owen? And we'll talk about that, of course. But maybe a Michael Carrick. He went to Man United. He never even looked to Newcastle, being a Geordie himself. So is Wilson's low key leadership a style or a way of, obviously the opposite, it appears, of what Paul Mitchell was? We'll talk about that. Is Eddie Howe the man? Is he the one that's going to be in charge? We'll talk about the press conference as well. There's a lot of things came up in the presser. A tone from Eddie Howe, which a lot of people say that he was really happy he was, but there's a tone to it. He kind of, Boaky said, yeah, Russ Wilson, he's going to be in charge of this. He's going to be. I felt a little bit of an authority in his voice, as far as he was telling us what Russ Wilson is going to do. Basically, the boss letting everybody know what his new hiring is going to do in the Toon. I didn't know how to feel about that, but maybe I'm just looking where there's no problem. So, Boaky, what's up, man? How you doing?
Yes, how are you doing? Good.
How are things in Blythe?
Good. Yeah, it's a little bit sunny, bit cold, but sunny.
When's the last time you saw Dan Barron there? Dan Barron?
I actually saw him in a supermarket. I was telling him when I saw him in a supermarket the other week. He was walking around.
First of all, does he live in? He doesn't live in Blythe. No way.
No, he won't. I think he's still got family down here that he probably comes and visits, but he doesn't live here. I wouldn't have thought of.
But I mean, there's a, first of all, there's a misconception about Blythe folks, and there's, from what I speak, I'm talking to in Newcastle, that Blythe is a bit rough around the edges, man. You're living Blythe, so come on, man, help us out. It can't be that bad, man.
It's not. I mean, to be fair, it's got a reputation, I think, from the 90s and early 2000s, because there used to be a lot of drugs used to be around the area. But it's not a bad place. It's a nice place to live, to be honest. True, honest folk live around here. I mean, I'm originally from Wallsend, so I think the two towns are very much similar in that.
Yeah,
both got reputations, but they're not too bad. I've never had any problems here.
That's right, man. So yeah, Dan Byrne, you gotta take a picture with him. You gotta talk. You gotta let him know, to come on the show, man. Listen, he's beloved here by a few.
I was worried that he'd watch some of the shows, and I thought I better not approach him. Like punches.
Isn't that crazy? Because we think we are. Well, listen, I think that way anyway. That we are irrelevant. But YouTube, for example, is just one of the primary places where we go to. Is everywhere, and you can't tell me that the players don't watch YouTube. Now, because of their Newcastle players and maybe watch Newcastle related stuff, you can't tell me that we haven't come up in their feed at some point in time But you never think about. I'd never think of that. I think we're irrelevant anyway. Anything that we say, we're just fans giving opinions, and that's it. But wouldn't it? Because at one time I was watching a Spurs channel a long time ago, and they were saying that there was this guy that always comes in with a incognito name, really. It's just and not obviously not a real picture. And every time they would criticize Richarlison, he would come in and he would be defending them, and it could be another Mighty Win, Mighty Win that would defend Burn no matter what. But wouldn't it be? They actually thought it was Richarlison for some reason. I mean, maybe they have more reasons to think that way, but it wouldn't be. When you think about it, it really doesn't feel like it's something out of this world. Like it could pretty much happen, but we're just giving our opinions here, man.
I think next time I see him, what I'll have to do is try to get a little promo video for the channel for him.
Yeah,
for the channel with him. Just say, Big Dan watches NUFC TV, NUFC Talk.
Tell him we're gonna be corrupt and never say anything bad about him if he makes a video. We'll only praise him, and I will definitely fall into that. We'll be corrupted and never again talk bad or
I'll
criticize.
say he's the best left back in the country.
You said one thing that was spot on yesterday, and I wanted to share that with or repeat that because we're gonna criticize them, but you said because Win tried to get you last night. He said, but what has he done bad, or basically trying to get you to criticize him, and you rightly in a smart way told him, I don't criticize Dan Burn. It's not Dan Burn's fault. It's actually the manager who puts him in that position because it's true. What is Burn going to say? I can't play there. What player would ever say that? Let alone Dan Burn, who is a Geordie, and he's not going to say that. So he's just going to play and do his best. And even Eddie Howe today acknowledged that the physicality change in those roles is a big difference. But then obviously he retracted it and said that he's done a good job. But he knows deep down inside that Dan Burn is not a left back. But again, he's doing it because now I'm on the boat. We're doing it because we really don't have another option. Even this Ashby kid, out of nowhere, he said that he was hurt. I didn't even know Ashby was hurt. But you rightly said that yesterday, man. Good job. Good job for standing up to the Happy Clappers last night, man.
I think, as you say, Chris, with Dan Burn, we're going to have to accept he's left back for the next few weeks. And you can't criticise the lad for playing in that position, for being poor in that position. You can criticise the performances and comment on them, but the lad himself, it's as you said, it's not his fault. It's completely down to the manager for choosing him in that position. And I would rather see a youngster brought through the ranks and played there than trying to play a player out of position. It's just not. It's not fair on Dan Burn. And as Win has said throughout, this is the World Cup year for Dan Burn, and we are playing him in a position that shows all his weaknesses. So it's not fair on him either.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I do think that it is. I guess what we need at this moment with all the injuries with the fullbacks. Thank you, Charles, for gifting a membership on YouTube, man. Appreciate that. That has gone to Matt Bowman. By the way, later on tonight at 8 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. USA, we will have the Friday Neat Show with Mighty Win. We'll be bantering, talking about old school Newcastle stories, music, of course, and a few Geordie jokes that I came up with. Maybe they'll sound a bit stale coming from me, or I'll just have Mighty Win read them. But I actually cracked up with a few, so we have a good time. It's Friday Neat, and we got into the tune, of course. So join us tonight at 8 p.m. UK for a few, I guess, pints, virtual pints, if you will. But the Wissa situation, and by the way, the membership from Trolls, thank you very much, went to Matt Bullman. Did I say it? Maybe I did. I say it, but I kind of just want to refresh there. Want to say it again. Sophie says she grew up in Wall's End. We've had famous people from Wall's End. I think wasn't Beersley from Wall's End?
Sting's from Wall's End, the singer.
Sting, yeah. Proper UK Northeastern folk come out of Wall's End, man. But
Like,
I thought Peter Beardsley was from Wall's End, right?
I think he was. I think Michael Carrick was as well, that you were on about before. Well, he
Ooh,
was,
Mike,
because I went to school with him, so he was from Wallsend.
you went to school, man, and you're not on the phone book, man. So you claim to know all these people, but you don't get. They're not on the phone book.
I really don't know him. I was very, very young, say, first school that we went to school together, and then he moved on to football and schools. But we did go to school together for a couple of years.
Yeah, but how did you know that? Because when you're a little kid, man, you don't remember that stuff, or do you just really?
You do when he becomes a
When it
Premier
became-
League footballer, basically.
where you're like, man, I remember that lad, that Carrick. Well, that's gonna have a unique name anyway.
His dad was already quite. He wasn't famous, but his dad was a good footballer as well.
Was that right? I didn't know that.
His dad was already quite famous in the area anyway, and he had a lot to do with Wallsend Football Club. So the family were known, and as I say, I did go to school. He also had a brother called Graham Carrick, who was quite a good
What's
player
that?
as well.
Well, he was managing. He was in Newcastle, I think, managing some team in Newcastle.
Yeah, he
And
he was a good player as well. Graham, I think he got an injury, but I think the two of them were ended up at West Ham together, and that's where Michael Carrick's career obviously took off, was from there.
yeah, and Michael obviously was a manager of Middlesbrough for a long time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know what he's doing now, to be honest. It'll be interesting. No, but you see, that's an interesting question though, man. Because is it? Because I feel like northeastern folks are very proud of their own. Like I feel like it's something like it's actually it's highlighted over any other place that because I've been watching other teams, and I guess you can say there are a few clubs where most clubs are proud of their own players that they come up through the academy, and if they're from the plays. I've seen Liverpool, certain players, like for example Gerard, and you got this other one that's working for it's the pundit now. What's his name? Carragher.
Carragher, yeah.
They feel proud of those. So that's kind of nature, really. But one thing that surprises me though, Boaky, is that I feel like Geordies tend to forget a little bit about maybe because he didn't in a natural way, because he didn't play for Newcastle, Carrick, for example, or maybe he did in a young academy. I don't know, but obviously in the professional didn't. Maybe he didn't know, yeah. And the same thing about Gaza, for example. Gaza is not regarded, but for me, again, if Maradona played for Newcastle, I don't care if he played for 1 month. He would be an icon. Same thing with Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi or even Neymar. If Neymar came for 6 months to Newcastle in his heyday, obviously, I think that because you want to, if you want to hold on to those names, like this old time great play for Newcastle, but Gascoigne, I put him in not a level of Maradona. I mean, I think he was talked at the time but he is definitely he was at one point the greatest player in the world, man. And the fact that he was a Geordie, he is a Geordie, was. I feel like a bit of a connection has been lost. Maybe it's back now that he's retired and there's not so much, crazy. For example, here we go. There's a good example right there, because Kenny Nichas is Asprilla. Asprilla is regarded as a cult hero, maybe not a legend, but he's comes back to Newcastle. He does commercial things for Newcastle. He just came back for the Barcelona game. But Gaza, we play longer than Asprilla. You know what I mean? For Newcastle, he came out of Newcastle's loin, but I feel like with him as well, Boaky, he doesn't rep Newcastle as you would expect it to, and maybe there's a disconnect there, because when do you ever see guys are talking about Newcastle as in like Eddie Howe and the team, they're doing great, the lads? You don't really see that.
To be fair, you don't really see Gaza talk a lot about modern day football. So if you watch football, if you watch him, his stories are all about his past and what he did and things like that. He's not really one for keeping up to date with football. So
Right.
And with Gaza, you're right. He's a brilliant player, and he's a player that played for Newcastle, and he was brilliant when he played for Newcastle. That's why he got the big move away.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure, because you mentioned this the other night, and I was thinking to myself, I can't really think why. Because yes, he only played for a season and a half, but there are players. Asprilla wasn't here that long. He wasn't here much more than that, and you sort of he become a cult hero, and other players didn't. There's other players don't. I don't know why Gaza's not seen as a cult hero period, but if you mention even the best teams, Gaza's the best player, probably one of the best players that I've ever seen again. But I would
Well,
never put him into a great Newcastle team, and I don't know why. It's just something. There's a mind block in my head that doesn't put him into a Newcastle team.
let's be fair. I think Gaza is probably. I mean, you can take Peter Beardsley. Peter Beardsley underrated now, to be honest, because
Yeah,
what I've seen as far as highlights. I mean, obviously, I didn't watch him play, but highlights. I mean, he was incredible. I mean, to a level rarely seen. I'm saying, not just a great player. You don't see him much either. Is that because of certain antics from not too long ago, which we kind of know about, obviously? That went on, and when he was a coach and stuff like that. Um, but he doesn't come back for do anything with the tune. Only certain players. We just saw Robert do an ad with Gordon. By the way, 250 pounds for a jacket. Lord have mercy.
yeah.
I think. I mean, and people. I don't know if it's true that I read that it's been sold out.
There was a queue
But I
outside
mean,
the club shop. Have you seen this morning? There was a massive queue of people waiting.
that's 250 for a jacket. Man, oh man. I mean, listen. Well, here in the U.S., we do buy jackets for the cold weather, but if you're gonna buy the jacket, you better be using it every day, because if it doesn't have any other purpose, but that's 230 pounds, says Kenny. Well, it didn't go down that much, so it didn't change that much. But that's insane, though, man. That's insane. But listen, hey, if you got it, you want to pay for it. That's your business. That ain't mine. But yeah, it was an interesting topic there at the beginning. Those heroes that Steve Watson. Somebody said that it was born at Wall's End as well. But I mean, I think people talk about him more than Gaza. But Wynn said that Gaza will be mobbed in the streets. Probably so, to be honest, because he's maybe rarely seen.
Gaza's more famous in Newcastle for being Gaza than being a footballer for Newcastle. As I say, I don't know. You've stumped us on this one, Chris, because I really don't know why Gaza isn't seen
It's one of those things that make you think, doesn't it?
Is a cult hero, because he's a brilliant player. He's probably the one that's went on to have the best England career, but he's never he's never seen as sort of a great
As
player
far
for
as
Newcastle.
as far as notoriety, skill, and England included, and everything else, he's probably the greatest footballer Newcastle's ever bred.
Yeah,
Quite honestly.
there's no arguing with that, but he's just not up here. He's just not up here seen as a Newcastle sort of legend. He's just not. I don't know if he was too young, as we've said, whether he was too young. But again, there's been younger players that have left Newcastle that are still seen in the spectrum of being great players, and
Right.
Gaza just doesn't come into the mention up here.
Yeah, no, but it is true. By the way, folks, if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to smash the like button. Help us out. We're not getting as many likes. Come on, man. This is, I know it's an unusual time for us, 4 p.m., but hit the like button. Don't forget to do that. Gavin Fuller there in the chat. Steve Watson is from Walls, and Jordy Dan. Gaza isn't a fan of modern night football. He says they aren't good enough. Well, that seems kind of a sour grape type thing. It is what it is. Football's moved on. But I do agree, nowadays everybody hugs each other and they don't want. But to the contrary, in the not earlier, but in the 2010s or 2006, 2010, when England could have won, actually, we had proper talent. They had too much rivalry to where they didn't get along in the team. So it's a fine balance, I guess you would say. Let's get back to Newcastle United though, and talk about what's going on. Yesterday you guys talked a lot about the confidential from Craig Hope and all of that. But Eddie Howe today, saying that Wissa is running on grass, and that the expectation, I guess, could be November, the Brentford game. Ironically, for him, but if he goes, this is one thing that amazes me, because he's running on grass on a knee injury. He's training, but if he were to be operated, that would be like a 9-month plus recovery. Like that is black to white, type of thing. And the same thing with Botman. Remember, he didn't want to have surgery, and he ended up being gone for a long time with the ACL. You know, I don't know what to do because either way, man, we're gonna look like we look a bit dodgy at the moment. Win, I'd say win, Boaky, because I'm used to having Win arguing with me. Actually, by the way, I'm surprised that we didn't have no arguments. Two proper, eloquent Toon fans just talking sense, man. But I mean, if he goes down, Bogey, if he comes back and goes down for longer, man. Either way, we're looking a bit dodgy with the signing, obviously, but there's nothing we can do about it.
100%. Wissa, I said last night I would rather he was out for a longer period, but we'll get him right, rather than, as you say, with like a Botman situation where we try these treatments that aren't surgery and it doesn't work and he's out for a longer period. I mean, my major concern, and I say again, repeating myself a little bit, but my major concern is that lad comes back for the Congo for the AFCON tournament, and they will play him no matter what. He's their massive player. He's their critical player to play, so they will want him to play. But if he goes over there and plays and knocks himself up for a couple of seasons or a season and a bit, we bust on him basically. That's been a complete waste of money. So yes, you want the lad to be back as quickly as possible, but you want to be back fit as quickly as possible. So give him the time to get over the injury and get him back fit enough to play for the town.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's really nothing Newcastle can do. I mean,
No.
I don't know. We don't know what's going on, but the fact of the matter is that he's running on grass. I mean, he must be getting better. Brentford, that's November. That's probably what is it, another month or so. And then you got the international break. I'm assuming he's not going to go to there. But as you said, he is Congo's best player. So they probably are not going to be. They're not going to care about Newcastle. It's going to be about the player, really, what he wants to do. Because if he really wants to, it was true what, like for example, Keith Downey was saying that he doesn't. He wants to pay back the trust and everything else that Newcastle put in him. Then he might just not. I think Alan Shearer said the same thing. Yeah, he might not want to, go for Congo, and that might be what's needed. He'll have to obviously have a conversation with the Congo. He can't just decline that and say he doesn't want to go because he'll be fine. But I don't think Eddie wanted to comment on that. But
I think for a friendly, there's a chance on that, Chris, that he will turn around and say, look, this is a friendly game. Can I miss this game? I think in a tournament, there's very little chance he's going to turn around and say, I'm not coming to the tournament if he's fit enough. So, right. yes, he'll turn around and say, for a friendly, I'll miss out on this one. But he's not going to do that for a big tournament.
Right. Well, that's it's certainly a big deal right now at this moment. Right now, even though Sula had a knock as well, I think from Eddie this morning, he got a knock, and everybody has knocks, man. Tonali with a knock, it's. I think they're going to be ready for it, but now Voltemade with more pressure to perform, more than ever, really. If Voltemade goes down, I mean, there's just. I mean, that's not good at all. You know what? Question here: is it my imagination, or were the pressure questions a lot better today? Well, they seem more pertinent, to the matter in hand. Well, Luis had a dodgy one, but
Louise always has a dodgy one, doesn't she? I think the questions were better in that they actually were pertinent to the position. My issue, and I raised this last night, is I raised it about creative hope, but I think we can pull it across all of the press. There's none of them really not critical, but we'll ask Eddie Howe more critical questions. So more questions about like disagreeing with what he's doing or saying, is this right or is that wrong? All the questions seem to be around sort of Eddie being able to answer them quite positively. And I think sometimes as the press, it's part of their job to put it across in the like sort of trying to put them on the spot a little bit and getting them to answer a more difficult question. The questions are, as I say, the questions are asked, and especially from Craig Hope, because he's been really critical of previous managers and been willing to do it in press conferences. But with Eddie Howe, everything seems to be a lot more Eddie, I love you. Here's me question sort of thing, rather than being Eddie, I'm a Newcastle fan. I've got criticisms of you. What you going to answer? How are you going to answer this critical question against yourself, sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, his job is not to be a fan. But people think he's a fan, and I don't think we can assume that. But more or less, he's a journalist, so he needs to ask journalist questions, journalistic questions, I guess you would say. And I think everybody's just happy clapping away, man. But compared to the Bruce era, clearly it's not is night and day, night and day. But like when he was talking about Wilson, I feel like he was for a moment there. Maybe that's my bedwetter side coming out, but he was he was. It felt like he was describing the situation, and then it felt like he was telling us what his new hiring is going to do. I felt kind of that way.
Well, do you know what I found with that, Chris, was whenever he spoke about Wilson, he called him Ross. He never ever referred to him as Ross director, because the new DOE, new chief executive officer, he referred to him as the chief executive officer whenever he spoke about him. But with Ross Wilson, he never went Ross, the new director of football. He always just said Ross and Ross this and Ross that, which and he obviously he has had a relationship with him in the past, because in the press conference itself he says, "I've known Ross for a long time, just in passing." But I mean, just in passing can refer to a lot of things. Have they been passing in a
Well,
meeting and they've had sort of they've had lots of conversations. He obviously knows the bloke, and there is already a personal relationship there, and you just don't want um, how to have complete control over Wilson. You want Wilson to be his own man and come in and make his own decisions.
So with Wilson, because Mighty went trying to have a go, earlier on talking about so him debunking. I mean, the person in question, which is Eddie Howe. Whether he knows, it's not a big deal, to be honest. Whether he knows Wilson or not, Wynn says he doesn't know him. He never knew him. But he says, well, there you go. He said he doesn't know him, and that's it. Like, what is this, man? It's like interrogating, like police interrogating somebody for a crime, and they're gonna say no. It was, So, but he said something that was a bit weird, because he did say that he knows Wilson, but not really know him, but like somewhere in between. But like you can't know him for years, and that's what he said. Know him for years, and then and say that don't know him that much. I mean, which one is it?
Yeah.
Either way, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, but we just gotta put it out there and see what the truth is.
But Wilson has to be as I say, his own man in the club. So he has to have
That's the
he's
main thing.
director of football. He's got to be fully in charge of that. It can't be he's in charge unless Eddie gets upset with him. So
Mhm.
if he disagrees with something Eddie's saying, technically the director of football should be Eddie's boss.
So
So
so because right here, interesting from Sophie in the chat says he also said he wasn't involved much in the hiring. My question is that because Eddie Howe is an employee of the club, he's in charge of, well, technically in charge of the football operations inside the pitch, with players and all that training and all that stuff, in-game management, etc. Why should he even be involved in any part of the hiring? Because it should be really, if the hierarchy works, we appoint a DO for a sporting director, and then because this is a professional environment, we're not here to say, do you get along with this one, or who do you get along with, and then we can look at them. You're supposed to get along with everybody, because this is a professional environment. I don't get to get hired by my job and tell them, well, I don't put me with this guy because I don't get along with him, so put me wherever I want. Nobody gets to do that ever. So I just don't know. Again, I go with you what you said yesterday, because one thing that's guaranteed from a manager before he gets hired, before he signs the dotted line, before he even knows what his contract is going to be, one thing that's guaranteed about that manager is that he's going to leave at some point. So the question could be: is Newcastle United too dependent on one man? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, some people say it's a great thing, uh, but I don't know.
It's a
I'm just
it's a bad it's a bad thing, Chris. The hierarchy in the club should be looking to the Eddie Howe is the here and now man. Is the way to look at it. So he's the one that's picking the team at the minute. He's the one that'll be looking at it for this season, next season at the longest period. He
Mm,
shouldn't be sort of directing the club for 5, 6, 7 years down the line, because he's unlikely to be here. The director of football and chief executive officer should be looking at the long term for the club. So they should be setting up the club for the long term, and it's Eddie's job now to be the here and now man. He's the day to day running of the club, if you like, and the people above are the people who should be planning the club for the long term. The big problem we have is Eddie's got so much control over the club now that he seems to is as you've said, he shouldn't be in position to choose anybody above his head. He should be there to manage the team, manage the squad, and the people above him should be chosen by the club as the best people to take the club forward.
yeah, yeah, no, I agree with that sentiment, or at least there should be some type of safeguard for when, because this is football, man, and this it can happen. A manager can be sacked, not only sacked, he can want to leave, he can many things. So I'm just wary of having to depend on one man and one man only. That's done a decent, really good for what where
Brilliant.
we've been. Brilliant job for Newcastle, but giving a lot of power to one man, it can be difficult. Um, Here's a question from Pont Mags. Is well, not a question, but a statement. Book is spot on, in my opinion. Managers are always too short term, and they don't consider the financial ramifications of that short termism. Um, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. You know, I mean, I just feel like somebody else, like a DOF or sporting director, need to be not just do what Eddie Howe says at once, but look after the team. Because if he were to leave and you brought every player that he wanted, then now you're stuck with players that the next manager, what is he going to do? Now you got to get that manager all the players that he wants, and then so on, and then you're stuck with players that, because they can always say, I didn't want that player, I don't want this team. So
Do,
until
do,
you
you
get
know,
my team, you know.
do you know what I think would be an interesting question to ask the club, Chris, is if Eddie Howe's, say, 20 years down the line, so that people don't think I'm calling Eddie Howe, but if he starts to have a bad season, who sacks him? Is it whose job is it to actually manage, and who manages him and who sacks him? So is it the director of football's job to say, Eddie, you're not doing a great job, you're gone, or is it the chief executive officer? Because to me, it should be the director of football. The director of football should have control over all football and matters in the end, and they should be able to turn around and say, "Look, Eddie, you've you're having a bad time. It's time to go." But I don't think that's the case at Newcastle. I mean, I don't think the director of football can sack the manager.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
it's a strange one, but it's a pertinent question to ask: is who is actually in charge of Eddie Howe? Who is his manager?
Here's ours. Says DOF does not pick the team. The manager or head coach picks the team. Well, nobody's questioned that, But
No,
but
100%.
again, again, if for example we got the greatest DOF in the history of our history, in the last 20 years, comparing to Eddie Howe's probably the best manager. Well, not probably, he is the best manager in the last 20 years for Newcastle United. You can say Bobby Robson was in his 20 years. Just feel my point. Well, actually, not in those 20 years. 2005, Bobby Robson was probably not even in Newcastle, to be honest. So there you go. Last 20 years, Eddie Howe, best manager. Although I like Pardew. Um, so now he gets to do things that he wants, right? So what if we get the best DOF for the next the last 20 years for Newcastle, and now he says, I want to be, I'm not liking how the team is playing, so I would like to see this. Now I want input in the team. We would say here, well, that's not your job. So you're not supposed. So the same way for Eddie Howe, though, he's not hired to be a DOF, a sporting director, or be in charge of football operations. He's in charge of the team. So I personally would keep my same energy or attitude towards somebody else trying to do Eddie Howe's job. I mean, I would assume you'd agree with that.
100% same. The director of football, as you see, is there to manage the long term football strategy. The day to day management of the club the team has to be down to Eddie Howe, and Eddie Howe it would quite rightly. I think yeah, even Eddie Howe himself, lad, if the DOF came in and said, "Look, I want you to do this, that, and the other, football wise," would quickly say, "No chance, you go or I go," and that's quite a fair statement to make. Um, but as I say, as you say, it has to be the other way around as well. That the director of football has to say, "This is my job, Eddie. If you cannot expect me to work within the parameters of your control, if you do that, then we'll go upstairs and one of us has to go." I think it's a two way thing.
Yeah. But listen, we'll see how this goes, and for what it's worth, which is not much. However you think about it, you'll either be right or wrong. We'll either be right or wrong, but that doesn't really matter anything as long as the team wins. A quick update on injuries. Whole injury update. Better than feared, says Eddie Howe. Jacob Ramsey back in full training. Eddie Howe cautious but optimistic. Discussing squad depth is a situation that that's their target is gone. Livramento is obviously injured. I think as well. Better than feared. Livramento. I think what Eddie Howe kind of said, but obviously he's not going to be coming back anytime soon. Miley in midfield with Willock, who didn't get lost, by the way. Win, I can't believe Win fell for that earlier. Win and Gary both fell for that, and they were all serious about it too. Oh my gosh, man. So that's we'll see about that. Joe Linton with a knock, but he'll be fine, I think. So basically, no more injuries that than the ones we left for the international window. So that's that. The Josh Kinchington kid has been signed, I think, from Barnsley. The next John Stones. That's a good question I had actually. How does the next John Stones play? If he's the next John, how old is this kid, by the way? I don't even know. Is he 15, 16? I guess he
He was
wouldn't be.
14, was he? He was
Oh,
14.
14.
Yeah,
These labels, man. The next John Stones at 14 years of age.
it's
What are you on?
ridiculous. Yeah.
I mean, I think it only does bad for the player than actually help him out.
Well, that's it. He might find out about McDonald's and women and never play again. So
Exactly, man. Next John Stones. You kidding me, man? So I tell you what, let's go with some comments here and see what the folks are saying. Come on, smash the like button, folks. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know what you think in the comment section down below. And you can also super chat if you want to contribute and help the channel out. You can super chat, give memberships away. Thank you to Trolls who gifted a membership earlier on. And so let's go with some highlighted comments already from the conversations that we've had. Breaking, Nick Pope has taken the option to extend his contract at Newcastle, says Jordy Den. I'm not sure, I haven't corroborated that, but it could be an interesting topic. There it is. Keith Downey did say that just not too long ago. Well, that's great stuff there, Jordy Den. Let me see what this might stop us from continuing comments, because we definitely want to expand on this. But yeah, Keith Downey right now saying, exclusive, Nick Pope has taken up the option of an additional year on his Newcastle United contract. This means Newcastle keeper now has over 18 months left on his deal, and he will not be out of contract next summer. The 33-year-old, who has been in outstanding form so far this season, took the option as part of a reward for helping the club qualify for Champions League back in the day, or maybe last season. That story breaking with Keith Downey and Adrian Kajumba.
Chris, I think that makes complete sense in regards to the fact that at the end of this season, we're definitely going to be either looking for one keeper or having to sign Ramsdale if he's proved to be good enough. So already having a first choice keeper in place just gives us a lot more flexibility on the club's stance. So I think that's actually a really good thing to happen, a good signing, in that it sort of it takes away the pressure of that. At the end of the season, we're not going to end up being in a position where we haven't got two goalkeepers. We need to sign two goalkeepers.
Yeah, that's it is a good deal. The fact that we we got him on the contract, that's a good thing. I think eventually though, Eddie Howe, who's in charge. By the way, thank you, Charles, for gifting another membership that has gone to Jenny. Jenny, welcome Jenny to the YouTube membership club. Thank you very much, Charles, for that one, man. Appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much indeed. And Eddie Howe's gonna have to make a decision. You know what does he want? You know, he kind of in the middle too much. You know, either Pope or you're gonna get a new because you wanted to get this kid for that went to Man City. You know, I'm assuming you wanted to play him. What was the point? You know, what would be the point? So if you or maybe Pope has changed Eddie Howe's mind. I have no clue. He hasn't changed my mind yet. You know, he's still the jury's still out on Pope. I mean, he's doing like he down said he's doing all right, but I don't think that he's lit up. He definitely, in one decision, cost us the game against Arsenal, or part of it. It's not hard. It's just actually reality, to be fair. So I don't know. What do you? I mean, the goalkeeper is still out. I think the jury's still out as far as goalkeeper.
I think part of the thing with Hope is that as well, Pope, sorry, is as well that his backup is being paid so much in wages.
Yeah,
It's at some point he has to get a chance. Surely, you can't justify having a player on 120 grand a week playing in goal on the bench. If we're paying that much in wages, at some point he has to get a chance in the first team. Surely, and if not, then there has to be major questions asked on why the hell we're signing him on that sort of wage.
yeah. I mean, and we knew that too. So I mean, it's not like well, it's just a loan, to be fair. So I mean, he can always go back.
It is, but I mean, it's a year long loan, and we're paying him that wage, which is immense for a goalkeeper. I mean, 120 grand a week for a goalkeeper just seems massively over the top.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. But, you know, it wouldn't be because we actually when we broke the news that we were live, I think, and that happened. We found out we found the salary, what it would be. I think you were on there. Mighty Win was shocked and he couldn't believe that was the salary. Of course, the next day he flip flopped and said it wasn't a big deal. But that wouldn't be really a. I mean, it is kind of shocking, but at the end of the day, if he was playing, not people wouldn't question it. But he's not playing, so you know, I think it's a big deal when a player that you don't count on is on the bench. That's kind of it is kind of weird, anyway. I would say.
This is what I don't get from the Mighty Clapper's point of view as well when he's on about new contracts, is the fact that he'll justify paying the goalkeeper 120 grand a year that's sitting on the bench and has done nothing for her. But you've got Tonali, who's been absolutely amazing for her, and he's wanting to put about 90 caveats in the fact that he gets a decent wage. You know what I mean? Sort of, you've got to look at it and think, if that goalkeeper's worth 120 grand a week, not playing, sorry, but Tonali's worth he's worth at least 250,000 pound a week, if not more, based on that point alone.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. All right, good. Thank you very much, Jordy, for that piece of news there. Matt Bowman in the chat says, didn't even know that Peter Beersley played for Hartlepool. Oh, yeah, I knew that. So, didn't Cardinal play for 3 Sunderland, Newcastle? I don't think he didn't play for Newcastle. Cardinal.
I don't think so.
He didn't play for Newcastle.
I could be wrong, but
I think he played for Middlesbrough, but he didn't play for. He played for the Mackems too, but he didn't play for Newcastle. I know that. That's my era now. You can't.
I think Beardsley came from the generation of footballers that once the career was coming towards the end, they dropped down through the leagues. So he sort of played for lower league teams as he was getting older. It doesn't tend to happen as much nowadays because the players have made so much money and don't need to do it. But there's if you look back in the past, there was a load of players who had great careers and then slowly worked their way down the leagues.
Yeah. Kenny W says sold out in 5 minutes. The jackets. That's crazy, but you know people will buy this stuff, man. Sold out in 5 minutes. Paul Hurd says, I don't think we protected Gaza from himself. He could have been the best in the world. But the player also has to do his part. You can't force him to. There's no denying that guys that love partying. It is not. That what nobody taught him how to party. He sure knew how to do it. And being a proper Geordie, he loved a little taste every now and then. Jordy Dan Shay Given was at the club shop last night. My mate got a photo. I'm going to have a look in about hours time. Lynn Simpson says people in the queue 10 hours and sold out in minutes. Unbelievable. But what does that make of Newcastle fans? Because I mean, people. I mean, we're talking about how we think 230 pounds for a jacket is crazy, but people are going to buy it, and they know it. I'm sure they know it.
I
Uh,
think it proves Adidas made the right decision coming back to Newcastle, doesn't it?
uh,
If that's happening, I mean, Adidas have got their promotions and sort of the setup of new kits and that amazingly right. If you look at how much they must be making out of this now, and it sort of works for the club as well because it does work for the club as well in that the club are making the money as well. So it just shows you what a poor show we were before that we got took over. Mike Ashley never did anything like this with the club, and it's such an easy thing to do. It, they haven't spent millions and millions on sort of doing this. Basically, what they've done is they've reintroduced stuff that we've had in the past, and people
yeah,
live on nostalgia. And that's the whole point of it. If you look now when you're going around Newcastle, the amount of the maroon and blue tops, dark blue tops that are on, is absolutely, and they are the tops from the '90s that everybody loved. It's such an easy marketing strategy, but Adidas have got it spot on, and we've made it the club and Adidas are making a fortune out of it. It's good for everybody,
yeah.
apart from the
Uh,
fans paying 250 quid for a coat.
Imagine, man, that's a crazy amount of money, man. You know why? Given all his talent, Gaza underachieved. Says, you know why? He also says, I thought they asked the questions that fans wanted to answer to in the press conference. Interesting. Gavin Fuller here. I think we should say to Tonali, extend till 2030, and he can go back to Milan on a free if he wants. Well, listen, look, you wouldn't think so, but if you guarantee, you got to put somebody on paper in front of somebody, to say 2030. That's a long time, but say that. Um, Guarantee somebody really has to look at that place really close and hard and decline that offer, because that means you guaranteed money for the next 5 years when you might be declining. Guaranteed money. I mean, it might look silly. I mean, some players might say no because they think their capabilities they can get somewhere else, but some players might say, look, it's a great offer, and I'm guaranteed money for a long time. Why not? I'll probably do more than 5 years though. I'll probably, well, no, it's 25. Yeah, it's 25, so I'll probably do more than 5 years. I'll probably do seven years. Chelsea does it all the time. Uh, why do they sign it? Because those players know. I mean, damn, you got a contract for next 7 years, 8 years, man. Uh, that's guaranteed money, no matter if you play for this club or whoever. It's hard to say no.
Chris,
So
can
yeah,
I
it's
just
really
pick
worth
up on this from the press conference this morning as well? Because it
it.
was asked of Eddie whether the Wilson was looking at contracts, and he says, "Oh, give him time to settle in." No, what we should be saying to Wilson is, "Look,
Yeah,
there's an Italian kid over there. He's the best player we've ever had. He's absolutely he's amazing. We need him to stay for the next 5 6 seasons. Do anything on everything you can to get that lad to sign a new contract." Because if we let this go down the route of the Tonali situation where we didn't deal with it early enough, it
Lisa.
just it shows like a lack of sort of understanding and pick up from the club. You have to get this lad on a new contract and pay him the wages that he deserves. That's the major thing we need to do. That Wilson's first job should be to do.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Ian, and not well. Apparently, the priority for him is Botman. I don't think that's priority whatsoever. It
No,
needs to be Tonali, number
Tonali's
one.
the Tonali. It should be the club's one and major sort of focal point. That lad would need. He's the best player we've got. He's the best player we've had probably ever.
Well, yeah, midfield there. I wouldn't. I would definitely go there. I mean, yeah, I agree with that. Interesting notification. I get Ange Postecoglou could be sacked if Forest lose against Chelsea. Dang, that's a crazy story over there in Nottingham. More comments here from Ian that says he has called the new CEO by his first name in the presser. That means they're getting acclimated to each other, I guess. Foxy, Howe has crossed paths with Wilson a lot when both down south with Howe at Bournemouth and Wilson at Southampton. Okay. Trolls, Howe's job is to get the team to work and tell the scouts and so on what kind of player he wants, not who he wants, in my opinion, as far as names, maybe. Which I wouldn't put it strictly to that. I mean, he might like a player by the name, and he might say, "Can we approach and see what can happen?" But he needs to be open minded. If the DOF or sporting director tells him, "Oh, we reached out and the guy doesn't want to leave, and or he wants a lot of money that we can't pay," so I got these other three options that are really good, and have a conversation. But he can't just say no. It's either Gehi or nobody. I think that's a bit again not the way to do it, right?
100%, Chris. The manager needs to see these are the players I've been sort of looking at and given options, and he has to be involved in them players coming into the club. But the final decision needs to be with the director of football. Otherwise, what's the point in having the director of football?
Yeah,
You know, the,
he needs to have authority. Yeah,
yeah, this is my big concern. If Eddie has had a lot of control over who's come in as director of football, is that he still has control over him. The
yeah.
director of football needs to have full control over Eddie, and sort of
Well, that's the way it should work, bro.
he is there as his boss.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Curtis Skinner says, "I respect Eddie. Eddie, I respect Eddie. He's given me one of the best days of my life, but his lying, because in Ross' statement he said I've spoken endless with Eddie Howe. Now Eddie is acting like it wasn't his what is that opponent meant? What does that mean? But basically that he didn't know him.
It wasn't his. I think it means appointment.
Appointment, gotcha.
Yeah.
Pop Mags, we ended up selling two absolute stars, Minta and Anderson, for peanuts because we had no sporting director at the time who should have insisted on selling Wilson, Lascelles, Miggy instead. Well, that's an interesting topic there by Pop Mags. It's a crazy world, says the club has also put Eddie Howe in this position. You have to deny that. Well, they certainly didn't do a good job of putting the deal, but also the DOF and the CEO. That's clear. The CEO main thing for PIF. They didn't. I don't know why you have to wait until a new season starts to put a CEO. I mean, the kind of we already knew about Hopkinson way before even the transfer window started, I think. But the main thing, the DOF, there's a reason why we were left without a DOF. People complain about that, but there's a reason why we were left without a DOF. If you look at it objectively, they both didn't get along with each other. And however, for the benefit of the club, wouldn't have been better to say, Mitchell, just do your job for this window and do it well, and so you'll go. But there's a reason why he left. It's not like he just said, I don't want this job no more. I'm leaving. Or he wouldn't have done that because he had to pay all kinds of money back to Newcastle. He didn't want to do that. So they came into a mutual agreement, clearly. But there's a reason for that because they didn't get along. Mitchell with Howe with Mitchell, both ways equally. It's not that Eddie Howe the victim and Paul Mitchell was the aggressor here. No, it doesn't work like that. They both didn't get along, but for the sake of the club and to have a good window, probably Mitchell should have stayed and done his job. But some would say that how can they do that if they don't get along? It's also not fair to sack the man if the DOF jeopardizing the club interests.
But Chris, you don't, generally in life, you don't have to get along with everybody that you work with. You just have to be professional. And I don't think Mitchell was professional, but I don't think Howe was professional either.
Yeah.
I think the two of them should have sat down and says, look, we're never going to completely agree on anything, but we'll work for the best interests of Newcastle United Football Club. We're both paid massive wages by them, and we sit and we work on the basis that we're going to be here to work
Yeah.
for Newcastle. But neither of them seems to have done that. And I do think we have to say that if Eddie has the same issue now with the next director of football, it's Eddie that needs to be looked at, not the director of football.
Well, it's clear that he hasn't worked out with Mitchell, with Ashworth, and well, we'll see what happens with Wilson. Those are the two that he's had, really.
Yeah.
So two out of two, really, not going well. But do you think though that Wilson, because it seems like on what he said, he's got a strategy, which is being calm, rebuilding from within, instead of coming in like a bull in a china shop type of thing. Do you think that could be a strategy of Wilson to just go in easy and not rub Eddie Howe the wrong way, and just kind of? Do you think that that's a good strategy if he were to do that?
I always think it's a good strategy to go in and try to get on with people in a club, not to try to cause waves if there's no need to do it. However, what I don't want him to do is go in and be frightened to challenge Eddie. The
Mm,
director of football has to be willing to challenge the coach. So, yes, don't go in and cause waves deliberately. There's absolutely no need for that. But he can't. But on the other side of the coin, he can't just be a yes man to Eddie. So if he disagrees with what Eddie's saying and what Eddie's saying goes against what the club strategy is, then he has to be willing to say, "Look, Eddie, you're wrong there. This is the club strategy. This is what we want to do." So yes, don't go in and sort of rock the boat, but be willing to stand on the boat and argue with the bloke who's in charge at the minute, and tell him this is where we need to be, sort of thing, rather than just yes Eddie, yes Eddie, yes Eddie. Be no Eddie, you're wrong on this point. So yeah, I think that there's two sides to that one.
It's interesting to mention though, because the Guardian put a piece about Ross Wilson, his transition from Forest, and he said that he does have this quiet leadership style where he's kind of the guy in behind the scenes, which is not a bad thing, to be honest. But like you said, indoors within the office, if he has to say no, he should be able to say no, or that we can't do that. We can do this. But I don't have an issue with the leader, the quiet, strategy outdoors, for the fans, I guess, or coming out speaking against something that he doesn't agree with. But certainly within closed doors, he needs to be able to say, we can't do this because of that, because of this, in a polite way, not fighting. But again, I'm trying to not be a happy clapper, right? I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be a bedwetter, and just say, maybe this is a good strategy. Maybe I'm trying to justify, but I'm like, why do I have to justify? Why can't Eddie also give in a little bit?
But Chris, that's a professional manager. But what you're describing there,
Yeah.
someone who's professional, who doesn't call people out in front of other people, but will there? I think maybe what Wilson would do is with Eddie is not agree with him, but just if Eddie's saying something he doesn't agree with, just not say anything in public. But then as soon as he gets Eddie behind closed doors, is sort of Eddie, what you said there was wrong. You know what I mean? So it's not done as like a sort of public blasting, but it's done behind closed doors, and he comes around and says, "This is what you've got wrong there. This is the club's strategy. This is what we want. What you said what wasn't right, and you
Yeah.
don't say it or do that again." Which is a good management strategy. And as you say, sort of, if I don't think Mitchell ever did call Eddie out in public, but
Well,
if Eddie
it,
felt that the put that
yeah.
it was getting put out to the press, I think it's more what's put out to the press rather than calling out in
Well,
public nowadays.
when he said the strategy is not fit for purpose, the recruiting strategy that includes his nephew, includes Steve Nixon, maybe people that he's worked with closely, and clearly maybe because he was involved and is involved in the yes or no of players, who comes in ultimately, maybe he felt attacked by that, coming out to the media. I remember specifically, very clearly, when Mitchell days before says. Um, that no, or maybe it was Eddie Howe first that says that I haven't spoken to Paul in weeks, but I'm sure in a kind of a dismissive way. I'm sure I'll speak to him at some point, about the transfer targets, etc. And then a few days later, Paul Mitchell says that he's talked to him, that he talks to him all the time. Type of thing. So that they were going at each other, man. People forget about this. It's incredible to me because people just tend to forget. 1 week happens and 1 week passes by and nobody remembers anymore. These two were going at each other, and it's not a normal way of doing things, by the way.
I
A
think
contradiction.
I think in a professional big club, you don't have these issues. The director of football is very rarely mentioned.
Yeah.
Sort of, and that's the way it should be. The director of football should be there looking at the long term strategy for the club, and yes, managing the manager, and he should come to the front when there's something going wrong, so the manager's in trouble to be sacked or something like that. But at our club, it is sort of at the minute it seems the director of football, because it's been such an issue under Eddie, is just a constant talking point, and that shouldn't be the point of a director of football. The director of football, as I say, should be in the background, planning the long term strategy for the club and helping the head coach as much as he can. And if Wilson get into that position, so we'll hardly ever mention him, that's him doing a good job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Davey, is Win stuck in a fictional maze? No, I don't. Well, no, he's actually at Amrit's party. Amrit is turning. I don't know how old he's turning, but he's old. He doesn't look that old,
I think
Amrit,
he's at
but
least 60.
yeah, his same age as Win. But no, he's a birthday. Happy birthday to Amrit, of course. Have a lovely day, mate. But he'll be back again, I think. Well, let me see. Actually, he's. Uh, so yes, he'll be in. He's just telling me that he'll be in for 8 p.m. UK. He says the shots have already started, so I'll be in a party mood at 8 p.m. I'll be there. Says so 8 p.m. We're gonna have Friday Night, and we got into the Toon show with the Mighty Win, listening to proper music, banters, NUFC or Newcastle stories. That we'll talk about, Geordie jokes and everything else. So if you're staying in, but do want to have some fun, join us at 8 p.m. for for an hour or so to do, and you'll be able to request your songs, so you can super chat your songs in and request whatever you want to listen to, and of
Good
course
luck
that
with that
show.
one. Good luck with that one.
That would
Chris,
be
it brings on shots. It'll take him about 2 hours
oh
to get
yeah, I mean,
any statement out he's got to make.
You're out of your mind, man.
Win is in the building, baby. Win is in the
Are
building.
you stupid or what?
He is in there.
Right, there you go.
There you go, man. So all right, so interesting. What is going to be Howe's new formula? We can discuss a few things as far as the tactical side of things and team chemistry. I want to know from people in the chat to let us know. Is it a little bit too early to talk about Wissa and Walter Matter? Maybe so. We ain't going to see Wissa for a while. He's running on grass though, which is is a very positive thing. It's a very positive thing. But that possibility of Wissa Walter Matter, 2 W's up front for Newcastle is something that fans are dying to see, but you might not get to see it for a while, man. It all depends too. If hopefully Wissa doesn't become a big deal, his injury, and he's able to recover. Do you see a possibility that when he comes on, that I just don't see Eddie Howe changing his 4-3-3. So how do you fit the two? Is the question. One to the wing, one on the right wing. Wissa's played left wing before, but he's not going to take Gordon out. No way. So now you take Ilanga's already suffering a little bit because Ilanga's not playing much because it seems like Murphy's being taken in consideration a lot by Eddie Howe. I mean, adding another possible winger there with Wissa, that would be probably devastating for Ilanga. But I could keep going back to, and then you can tell me. I keep going back to that press conference against Wolves when he said, he's politely saying it that he's not going to say no. I'm close to that idea, but he pretty much said, that it's not really his thing to disrupt the 4-3-3 formation.
I don't think there's a chance, Chris. Eddie Howe changes his formation just to bring Wissa and Belanga into the team. I think that the team will stay with one up front. So when Wissa's back, it'll be one or the other up front. There'll probably be a good rotation between them. But I think that unless we're losing games and it's an in-game management where you bring the two of them on, I don't see a situation where Eddie in the near future, potentially this season, is going to start with two strikers. It's just not. It's not his way of playing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. Ramsey's ready to play though. So what is going to happen? Joe Linton, is he ever coming up? I think that people are starting. I mean, he only played one game really, Ramsey, for us. That's insane, isn't it? Maybe play a little more, but one game he got hurt, never came back again. I think he only played once. So, but I do like his style of play. I think he was very positive that game that he played. Who was it against? Leeds, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, Aston Villa was it? One of the two. No, Aston Villa. Did he play for Aston Villa? I mean, he played for Aston Villa, but did he play against Aston Villa? I'm not
No,
sure.
I
No,
think
he didn't. Actually, he didn't.
It was against
Yeah,
Leeds.
he played against Leeds. So I actually like what I saw there, but it is the are we going to take Joe Linton out ever? That's a question. Can Eddie Howe make those moves that you think, wow, I can't believe he took Joe Linton out?
Well, to be fair to Eddie Howe and in his decision making, he seems to be making the right decisions with the two centre backs now. He's took Shaw out and he's took Byrne out and put the two Botman and Chow in, who have been amazing together. I think his next priority is you see it, is Ramsey better than Joe Linton, and if he is, to replace him. And to me, I think most fans would say the other big decision he has to make is to take Pope out and put Ramsdale in, and let Ramsdale have a chance to show what he's like in goal, because the whole point of getting that lad in and the fact that we're paying the massive wages to sort of show that he's better with his feet. I don't think there's a fag paper between them, as Win would say, on sort of the goalkeeping ability. So I think the saves and stuff are pretty much the same. But I think Ramsdale was brought in because he's a miles better distributor with his feet, and he needs to be given a chance to show that in the team.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think he'll get minutes. I mean, it clearly he's the first option in midfield, even above Miley. I don't think those players are. And fair enough, to be honest. I like Ramsey. I mean, the injury situation is something to think about. How something out of nowhere. Really, he's missed out like a month and a half or so already. Out of, I don't even know what happened to him. Ankle thing. I don't know. But if he's healthy, I think he would be somebody that's trusted by Eddie Howe to come in and do big things. Hopefully, because we need a replacement. Because Joe Willock might as well be like again. Yesterday, you were so spot on because you said, "Oh no!" Earlier today, I saw your comment. It says we're talking about him being lost in the maze when he's lost in midfield every week. You know what I mean? Something like that. But it's true. It's true, man. Joe Willock is just not working out. No matter how you want to picture it, it just is not fitting in this. He's not doing anything. Remember though, the going there the days of Joe Willock giving you that outside of the foot pass to Isaac, which was incredible, by the way. That people, I don't know if you saw that assist by Park Sung-soo, and people thought it was similar. It wasn't. Nowhere near it, to be honest. But going there the days of Willock doing any of that, man. Can't trust Willock anymore to change the game.
To be fair, Chris, I think Willock was a great player when he signed under Bruce, but he was played in a different position. He was almost a free floater in a number 10 position. And under Eddie's system, he doesn't work whatsoever. He's just not got the attributes that Eddie wants from his midfield, which is sort of to be attack, defend. And that's not Willock. So I think Willock would do a job, but not at the top of the Premier League, but a bit lower down. But I think the best thing for that lad now is, for him and us, is he moves on to another club who really want his attributes, and we get the money for him, because he's never going to be a midfielder for us now.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think at this point he's just playing because Eddie has no choice but to play him. and which is unfortunate. Even with Miley, Miley's doing decent. I think I like what Miley's is doing. He's not yet nowhere near pushing to start or anything like that. And by the way, that leads us to one topic of discussion from yesterday as well about Anderson coming back to Newcastle. Apparently, some ITKs on X today coming out with his head has been turned by Man United. Some say Newcastle. You know, what do we make of that? I don't, quite honestly. I mean, I get the banter between Newcastle and Man United, but I right now, Man U are not a destination to go to, really, to to win or even have really high expectations of doing something in the season. Maybe they still have the clout. I wouldn't doubt it. But what is the clout really? I mean, what is he going to do for you? You probably get paid more. You probably get paid more over there. I don't know. I don't know. But I just don't think that a player would choose Man United over Newcastle, which happened. So I was wrong with what's his name, Sesko. But I guarantee you, he's thinking about it. Many others, I think. I don't know if Ekitike would have joined Liverpool if he was told that Isak was going to go there. But Liverpool definitely has an active pull, really pull. There's no doubt about it. But Man United are kind of going out of their days of the big Man U. So would Anderson, being a Geordie, would he choose Man United? I mean, it would be. Do you think it would be devastating for his future Geordie career?
I think with Anderson, to be honest, if I'm 100% honest with Anderson, I think if we're going to spend £8 million on a player, we can get someone better than Anderson. And, I know Geordies. I know Geordies, and everybody's going to slag us off for this because he's a local lad. But I do honestly think that if we're going to spend £80 million on a midfielder, there's better out there. But if we do it, then it's understandable. But I think it just shows what an absolute nightmare and a major problem the whole financial fair play is with the whole league, in that we're having to buy a player back that we didn't want to sell in the first place because of the fact that we had to do it for to make sure we met all the rules. So, as I say, with Anderson, local lad, would love to see him back at the Toon. But as I say, also, I think if you spend an 85 million, there's better things you could spend that money on.
Man, 85 million is a lot of money, man. I don't know. I mean, Anderson he's probably going to be in England for the World Cup. That's going to put his price up, definitely. But it's a lot of money, man. 85 million. That's what would Tonali be worth?
That's the point as well. If Anderson comes in at 80 million, he's one of the highest ever priced midfielders. So he's going to come in on a massive wage. You've got to then give Tonali at least the same, well, more than him. Tonali's a better player than Anderson, and I don't think there's anybody out there who can argue that fact. And this is why Tonali needs to be put on a massive wage now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. By the way, Manchester United appealing to the government to help with once in a lifetime opportunity and help fund their new stadium. So if that's a pitch that they're going to do, Anderson, say, look, the government's helping us, which is kind of odd to be honest. I think I don't want to get political, but government should be helping citizens in the regular day lives, not about a football stadium. But neither here nor there. So I don't know. How would you think though? Let's do the hypothetical. If Anderson would choose Man United over Newcastle, do you think that he would lose a bit of affection from Geordie fans? Although, I mean, 10 years later, he can say, I want to go back to my home team and I love Newcastle, blah, 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 and everybody will love him again. So are we that fickle, or would it put a stain on his career?
I think we'd have a bloody cheek if we did did put a stain on him, because We sold that lad for what, in the end, probably about 15, 18 million pound.
Yeah.
So, if you look at it from the other side, the coin would be in a glass house throwing stones, basically. There's no way that you can blame Anderson for not having an issue with Newcastle United. He was the player that was chosen to be chucked under the bus, if you like, and sold to another Premier League club, down to the fact that we'd overspent. So no, I don't think it does. I don't think it does affect Anderson's legacy. To be honest, I don't think Anderson has much of a legacy on Tyneside as such. He
Ooh.
only played a few times for it.
Well, for example, but if Man United were in for him, literally talking to him and maybe send an offer, and he chooses Newcastle, that would amplify his Newcastle career before he even starts, like Alan Shearer did. Because before when Alan Shearer came in, he wasn't even thought of as anything. He was just scoring a lot of goals away, and people thought when he comes, kind of like the Anderson thing now. Because when he left, he wasn't really he wasn't when he left, he was a young lad, Alan Shearer. So, do you think it would it would definitely amplify his career though, Anderson, if he chooses Newcastle over Man United?
Oh, 100%. Or Pierre, he'd be a Geordie hero if he comes back. I think with Shearer, as you see, he wasn't thought of. And with Shearer as well, I remember when he signed when he signed for Keegan, and I actually walked into me. It was my nan's house, and she went, "Shearer signed," and I went, "Oh, for Man United." She went, "No, for Newcastle." I went, "He signed for Newcastle," and she went, "Yeah, he's come to Newcastle. He wants to come back home." And when you sort of bubble up inside it, it sort of bubbled up inside of us, and I just thought, "That's brilliant." And so I think it'll be the same sort of thing with Anderson, that you would feel pride that a lad wants to come home rather than be at Man United. But on the other side of the coin, you can't blame the lad if he does want to go to Man United, because we were quick enough to sell him.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that's interesting, by the way, what you said right there, because we didn't think. I mean, we can say we didn't want to do it all we want to, but we did, and I'm sure he didn't want to go. I'm sure he didn't. He didn't want to just leave. It turned out to be, interesting for him. He's playing now, but that's the thing, Now we want him when he proved that he can play. But
Yeah,
before we didn't, and then we can say all this we had to, and we nobody knew that he can be this good. Which I agree with you. I don't think he's this unbelievable footballer that people are talking about. I think he's great. I think he's a good talent, but jury's still out. If anything, if the England situation, which is great, I think it talks about how England is lacking midfielders, and they're still using Henderson to come in than anything else. I'm not trying to talk bad about Henderson. I think he's a good talent, but this notion that Wynn was talking the other day about Tonali, you shouldn't even be in the conversation, man. About he's happy if Tonali wants to leave, that's fine because we'll get Anderson back. As if that's a replacement for Tonali.
that was absolute rubbish, Chris. If I'm on, I know we can't swear now, but I would swear
No,
if
that's
I
fine.
could. That was absolute rubbish from Wynn. In regards to Anderson and Tonali, Tonali's on another planet to Anderson. It's not even a comparison, and that's no offense to Anderson. Anderson's a good player, but Tonali is a world class player. He is, as I say, one of the best players we've ever had, and definitely the best player we've got at the minute. And if Anderson comes in, he could still be polishing at Tonali's boots for me, because Tonali is absolutely an amazing player. With Anderson as well, I think the other point to make is, if he hadn't left, he wouldn't be in the position he's in now. He wouldn't be playing for England, because he wouldn't have got the chance under Eddie. And that's another worry about Eddie's management style, is that he just sticks with the tried and tested.
Right.
He's not one to put in sort of new talent, especially young,
Oh, sorry.
especially,
So,
especially new young talent. So I think a lot of people say we should never have sold Anderson. I think it's been the best thing for the lad himself, because he's managed to establish himself not only as a Nottingham Forest player but as an England player, and I don't think that would have happened here.
No, well, that's the truth. Actually, that would have never, and it would have never happened that way. And But he becomes that way. I mean, can he come back to Newcastle at some point? I mean, obviously, he knows that he's going. He has that in his hand. I mean, more or less, if he really were to choose Newcastle, I think at this point Newcastle would want to get him back, no doubt about it. Even if they had to pay the 80 million, that's I don't think that's really going to be a detriment to or stopping Newcastle to doing it. And the story as well, it would just sell overall, man. The whole thing. So, but he's still 85 million. That's a lot of money, and it looks like with this Marinakis not kid, he's not bothered, man. So if you don't pay up, he's not going to care. So, I don't know. I don't know where to go from this the Anderson situation. Although I will say, fans are hypocrites, man. Fans are hypocrites. All of them. We are too. If somebody was talking the same way how we're doing about Anderson, who is part of another club, if they were talking about one of our players, like Tonali, for example, if Arsenal were saying that Tonali, we got Calafiore, he'll talk to Tonali. Tonali will sign for Arsenal, no doubt. He can win Premier League. He can do all that. We would be criticizing them. We would be whinging about how entitled they are, about how, this and that. We will be whinging about it. But we get to do it with Anderson, who's part of Forest right now. You see what I'm saying? Nobody has an issue with that. That's all I got to say about that as well. Everybody does it. That's why I always said I don't get offended with other teams when my players. That's a good thing, actually.
100%, Chris. If you look at the whole Isaac incident and all the issues we've had with Liverpool, not one Newcastle fan mentions the Wissa issue that when he was coming here, which were very, very similar. So I mean, you criticise the club we criticise the club and the player as Newcastle, but then sign a player who's done exactly the same thing and don't mention a word about it. So yeah, we are very hypocritical as fans.
Yeah, that's true. All right, then. Well, listen, we've had a good show. Don't forget, of course, we got Brighton Newcastle live commentary tomorrow at 2 p.m. UK. Kickoff for us, 8 a.m. in the US of A. On the YouTube channel, of course, and on the website, you can listen to us live there. And don't forget to subscribe, follow us on X, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook as well. Facebook is a big one. Follow us everywhere. NUFC Talk TV right now. So it's certainly an exciting time for Newcastle. We're back in business. Brighton is going to be a difficult one away. But this notion as well, that's one thing I want to debunk. The biggest scam in humanity to me has been this good away point in the Premier League nonsense. Brighton is a good team. You can say that Brighton is a good team and they beat us or we don't beat whatever. But this one point, this point is a great point away. Nonsense, man. Some teams you can beat, you need to be able to beat. Like Leeds, newly promoted team. These teams that we're going to and be defensively in a defensive attitude. Really, that shouldn't be a thing. Are we going to play with 5 at the back? Be scary as we were against Leeds and Bournemouth? Hopefully not. Even in Arsenal at home, hopefully not. But this good away point in the Premier League nonsense. Rubbish, man. Now, Brighton, you can talk about Brighton and say that they're a good team and we might not get much. That's fine. But I'm not celebrating the point. Well,
I agree with your point. The whole 1 point thing is a joke. You're better off losing 1 and 2 games and winning 1 and 2 games than you are getting a point in a game. So you've got to say, if you're going out there, go out there to win.
Yeah.
That was win, not win, but go out there to win. go out there to win because a point against Leeds, against all these teams we're meant to be a Champions League club, and a point is not enough to get there. We need 3 points.
Yeah, very much so. Don't forget tonight, 2 p.m., ladies and gents, we'll be live again with the Friday Neat Show with the Mighty Win, banter, music, Newcastle stories. Join us 2 p.m. tonight. I mean, not 2 p.m., 8 p.m. 8 p.m. tonight in the UK, 2 p.m. in the USA. So join us in a few hours. Boaky, it's been a great one, bro. appreciate you for coming on, of course. Boaky,
Thanks a lot, Chris.
of course. We'll be back again tonight. And of course, don't forget, if you don't show up tonight, tomorrow, 2 p.m. match day against Brighton. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Take care.